States Exhibit 245.
Okay. And so if you just take that one out of the notebook and just set it to the side, if you would. Not the
Just the
picture
page.
itself, the whole page. We'll leave that for now.
Okay.
And I'll come back to it in a little while. Now I want you to talk about well, first of all, what does State's Exhibit number 245, what part of her body does that show, and what do you see as to describe it to the jury?
It's primarily her face, and there is the sticker I was just talking about with the scale. It's just under her lower lip, so you can just see all of the injuries that I previously described that are on her face.
And this tread pattern that you're observing, did it appear to be like one single placement of that tread pattern, or more than one?
More than one.
Okay. And is there a difference, in your opinion, to stomping injuries versus pressing injuries?
Yes.
And can you tell the jury what that is?
So, in my opinion, it would be stomping is with the foot, but has force to it, whereas pressing, I mean, that doesn't necessarily have to be the foot, but pressing means it's just held against the surface of the body, not with any sort of force.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to determine, you say not with any sort of force, does it take some force?
Some degree of force, correct.
In order for these injuries to be visible?
Yes.
Okay. But would you expect other associated injuries if it were stomping versus pressing?
Yes.
And what would those associated injuries be?
I mean, I would think that especially if it was on the face, you have a lot of delicate bones that are in the face, so I would expect there to be some fracturing with a stomping injury.
Are these injuries considered by you to be abrasions or contusions or mixture?
Mixture.
Okay. And kind of explain, as you're looking at it, where you see abrasions, where you see contusions? On this photograph, States
On this photograph. So on States Exhibit 45, again, it's all of those types of injuries that you see primarily just in the face area. The forehead, the nose, both eye areas, cheeks, and even the lips.
Where's there associated damage? You say contusions goes into the musculature.
Yes.
Is there contusions associated with these injuries in her face itself?
Not from this picture. She had some contusions well, that's not true. She had some on her forehead. She had one on the lower left cheek area, on her right lip, and then also under the chin.
With regard to, so let's go on to States Exhibit number 246 and 247. 246, 247, could you describe what those are?
These are both photographs of the right side of her head. 246 is kind of further away. 247 is more up close. And you can see the blunt force injuries I described previously that are on the right side of her head.
And on the right side of her face, as well as on the front of her face, did she have this same tread pattern that you can see in the photographs?
Yes.
Now going on to States Exhibit number 248, and I believe we've already looked at 244, but 248, does that show the other side of her face?
States Exhibit 248 is the left side of her face.
And then I think it was 244, which is that also the left side?
That's the left side of her head, so you can kind of see it's further away than 248, which is more up close to the left side of her face.
And you described some of the contusions, I think, were on that side of her face.
Yes, sir.
And for a contusion rather than abrasion, is it more or less force that is generally needed to cause a contusion versus an abrasion?
More.
Okay. Now, on that same side of her face, you described, and I'm going to refer you to States Exhibit number 249, you described something around or associated with her left ear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, could you describe what that is?
So she had let me find it in my report.
I believe it's
Sorry.
referring to your report.
Yes,
for
okay,
purposes.
here it is. She had contusions measuring up to 1/4 inch on the helix of the ear, which I said is the top of the ear here. And she had a 1/2 inch contusion on the posterior aspect of her left ear, in addition to a contusion on the part of the head that's behind the left ear.
And you talked about a pale blue contusion on her lower left cheek.
Yes,
Where is that specifically, like you point out in your own body?
here.
Okay. And associated with that injury, was there a different type of pattern that you could observe?
So the other area where the skin was kind of discolored and also had this square focus of pattern abrasions is on the left side of her jaw, kind of in this area.
Understood. Now, let's talk about her mouth. You talked about a contusion on her upper lip, I believe.
Yes.
And if you're looking at State's Exhibit number 251, is that displayed in that photograph?
Yes.
Can you tell us, for purposes for the jury, what about that you noted that on her upper lip?
That it's all I noted is it's a 1/8 inch contusion of the right side of her upper lip, right here.
When people get fat lips, for various reasons. But this one, did it have a markings associated with it other than swelling, or is
No, sir. Just discoloration. That looks like a bruise.
discoloration? I guess that's what, when I say markings, that's what I mean by discoloration is your word. Okay, you talked about some of the things on the inside of the mouth. And we have some photographs, just for purposes of the record. I'm not going to ask you to look at all of them. But I'm referring you to State's Exhibit 253 and State's Exhibit 253. You noted some injuries that were inside of her mouth, I believe.
Yes.
Can you describe those, please?
State's Exhibit 252 is a picture of the lower lip pulled down so that you can see the line of her gums or gingiva, and you can see that there are some petechial hemorrhages within the gum line. 253 is a picture of her upper lip pulled up, so that again you can see there's even petechial contusions there, and petechial hemorrhages there, and there is a contusion on the left side at the gum line.
So up inside of her mouth, where the gums basically go up and then come back
Meet
down.
the cheek, essentially.
Cheek to the gums, is
Yes.
that right?
And then State's Exhibit 254 is another picture of her lower lip pulled down, and you can see that there is this small laceration, so it's an actual small gash, but it's 1/16 of an inch, so it's small, but it's of the mucosa or the surface of the left side of the inside of her lower lip.
And was that consistent with some type of mechanism causing that injury that you?
It's in proximity.
Well, what do you believe caused that, or could have caused it?
That laceration is in proximity to one of her mandibular teeth, so it's possible that that's from impact with the tooth.
Okay. Now, you also described a moment ago some biting injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Where were those located?
So those are on the surface of the tongue. So if you stick your tongue out, just right on the top, and it's a curvilinear pattern of these kind of spaced out lacerations that are consistent with teeth marks.
And we don't have a photograph in evidence of this, but it is, can you describe what you did in order to determine the depth and the extent of those injuries?
Yes. So part of the autopsy for everybody, we actually will remove the neck organs, including the tongue. And so when that occurred, I could see the bite marks, and if you actually dissected down into the musculature of the tongue, there was even some hemorrhage right underneath those lacerations. So they're real injuries. The body reacted to them.
So, and we probably would go into this at some point, but is there a way that you can tell if somebody is still alive when they receive an injury versus already deceased?
So with antemortem injuries, so before the person is dead, I mean, you're probably familiar with this. When you get a scrape, your body reacts to it and it becomes red. But in the postmortem period, the body's not reacting to it anymore, and so it takes on a more dried, kind of tan brown appearance because there's no vital reaction to it. So you can tell if an injury is sustained antemortem or if it's postmortem.
An antemortem, what does that mean?
Before death.
And so, because there's bleeding associated with it.
Correct.
Right? Is that the type of injury that you saw on her tongue?
Yes.
That there was bleeding associated?
Yes.
And you talked about the hemorrhage that took place associated with this injury. Would that take some type of force of her biting down on her own tongue for that to occur?
That's possible.
Okay. Well, you said teeth marks. Did it look like it was somebody else's teeth marks?
No.
Right, so it would have been her own,
Yes.
clamping down on her own tongue. Is that
Yes.
correct? All right. Now, with regard to going on to, I guess, down the neck a little bit, you looking at page 3. Good point. Every injury we've talked about so far, those are those of those classifications, antemortem versus postmortem. Can you tell us what those injuries are?
Antemortem.
So prior to death.
Yes.
All of those blows
Yes.
on her head, her face, her shoulders, her neck, back of her head, top of her head, all occurred antemortem. Is that right?
Yes.
And for purposes of the record, or for the jury, does that mean while she was still alive?
Yes.